Crafters, welcome back to my channel. This is the final tutorial on the Majestic Dreams, and the original album was Autumn Orchard. So we're going to finish up our Majestic Dreams together, and I'll show you the few things that I've done and some things that I've put together. And if you like this video and you'd like to see more videos on similar styles for crafting and cards and making mini albums and just a bunch of different items, please like and subscribe my video, and that'll help out with notifying you then when videos do go up. So let's start off with looking at our album. And you can see that I've added some things to it. I first of all have this ribbon from Country Craft Creations that was sent to me. So I'm using that for a closure on my album. And I haven't done anything with the covers yet. I've got the covers ready to go, and we're gonna talk about that. And then let me show you what I have so far in the front of this album. So first of all, I put 4 of my 6 pages into my album, and I'm waiting to do the other 2 with you. I'm going to do that, and then we'll do a walkthrough of the album and what the pages look like. And then we'll also finish up this back side. I'm going to walk through what I also did in the front. I want to talk about that and show you that. But let's get started with, let's just get the rest of our pages in, and I can show you how I put that together. Just so that what I always do when I have ribbon or lace on my photo albums, I always put a piece of score tape along here, and then once I get the sheet on here, that'll hold it down very well. Or I use my art glitter glue to hold it down. It works really well on fabric or even Fabri-Tac. I love Fabri-Tac. It works very well. I try to make sure that my pages are all matching. This one I thought was matching. It's a little bit off, but I'm not going to worry about it. So the other 2 pages that we have, or booklets that we need to get in, are these 2. So I am going to put this one in first, and then we'll get the next one in. And what I do is I take the hinge, making sure that this is as flexible as possible, and I do glue them in. I don't tape them in because I want that binding from the glue to soak into my cardstock. Plus it gives me a little bit of time for wiggling, and I put that on the front and the back, and I do it about 1/8 of an inch up, 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch up from the bottom, because when I put this in, oh, I almost, you know what, I almost put that in, oh no, I didn't. I thought I almost put it in backwards. So you can see I haven't put my tags or anything in. I'm going to do that yet on here. But I'm going to go ahead and I am going to center up, well, that helps if I get it on, center up my page. And I'm going to make sure this is even with that. And then one of the things that I find is always very helpful is to either pull it up just a little bit and lay it down, and then make sure that I press very hard on there, because laying it down helps that to lay a bit flatter and helps it to be able to turn a little better. So my other book, I didn't put any pattern paper down here, and I'm not sure I'm going to do it on this album either. So that just goes back like that. Then we take our last page, and I always start at the back, is my preferred starting point, so that I can match the pages up as I put them in. And there are a lot of different methods for putting pages in albums, and what I will do is I will, at some point or another, show some of the basics for the ways of putting pages in an album. and the couple of different ways. And let's just get this one down. Even that up with that and lay that down because that'll pull that up just a little bit. You can see I kind of over glued, not a good thing. But it's important to try to get your page about a 1/16 of an inch up from the bottom of your page so that it has room to move, especially if the pages have dimension to them. I've got one back here that doesn't lay quite as flat as I'd like it to, but not too bad. So that puts all our pages into the album. And let me just walk through with you real quickly how the pages look, kind of what story it tells. And so I started off with that, and then here, this is the pattern paper. And what I did is, this is the other side of this paper, and I just matched that together. And then this is the same thing on this side, matches up. This derby, actually this derby club or jockey club, that was one whole sheet. That's none of these match those. And then I've got these two side by side, and these are two separate papers. This is the back, this was the front, going into more of a green story, and then kind of going into our reds, our pockets here. And then going back to our horses with the roses and the blue-gray tones. And then this is the back of this derby one. And we're back at some greens. This is one side, this is another side. This is the horse with the horse strips on the back. And then we're going into red again. And I used the whole piece of that tan cardstock. Then we've got this piece, and this is actually the piece that I'm going to be using for, or the papers I'm going to be using for the cover. And using this on the back and this one on the front. And then this flips to here. And hopefully this looks a little bit different as we go along. Ooh, looks like I got a little glue on there. Trying to mix it up with the patterns and the colors as we went along. And it's a whole collection, so everything should work well together. This is a whole page with a pocket. We've got the green here. This is a mistake that I made, that too similar together, but I think it's just fine. No one's going to fret about that. And then we've got our roses with our horses back here. And then we've got this. I like the way this looks. It looks really good together. And we come to this page with this, and then we finish off with this with our horses on the back. So that is the story that I went through with the color story. And I hope that it looks good for you, that you enjoy the kind of the movement of it. So what I wanted to do is talk about what I did in the front cover. So these pages were cut at a certain size because the black pages measured 5.5 by 7.5. So we cut these sheets for the inside here 5 3/8 by 7 3/8. But our covers are 6 by 8. So the inside piece for both covers insides were then cut at 5 7/8 by 7 7/8, and that's put into the inside of that cover. And then in my design team package, I also got one of these clips that match this collection. So take a look at Country Craft Creations. You'll see that there are different designs that match the collection. I'm not sure if you can see that with the cabochon on there. And it's a picture of this young lady with the horse. Not sure if you can see it. So what I did with that is, and there's no specific width that you have to do for this, but I ended up using, it was a 1.75 inches, and so then I cut my designer paper at 1.5 inches. And what I did with that is I clipped this onto this tab. Let me just move this up. So I just clipped the tab onto the back, and then underneath this one I have magnets underneath there. So that way I really got to show that clip off, and I used my magnets for underneath the papers on here. But both of these come up, and both of them are covered with the colored papers underneath. And then what I ended up doing is that there is the bigger cut-aparts. What I chose to do was then to put them in order through here. So I still need to put a mat on here or some paper, or the other option is that I'm going to cover this with some other 3/4 of an, not 3/4, 3/8 of an inch piece of the cardstock. And I probably will go ahead and use one of the strips that match that best. So that's kind of a finishing thing, and so I will go back through that and finish that up. So that is our inside cover. Now, for the back cover, what I decided to do was, you can see I changed it up a little bit. This back cover in the other book had just a pocket, and what I decided to do was to do a waterfall pocket on the back here, and then I can have a pocket in here that I can put some more tags in. So basically what I did in order to make this waterfall pocket is I cut these cut-aparts from the collection, and you'll have 2 sheets of them, and I cut them out, and they're 3 by 4, and there is 6 of them because there's 3 on each sheet. There's actually 4, excuse me, but I didn't use the 4 because this one is a landscape, and I just didn't work for me for using it in here. If you don't want to use the cut-aparts, or you want to use them differently, you can also go ahead and, rather than using a cut-apart on here, you can put like a 1/2 inch or 5/8 of an inch just on the bottoms going down, and it looks very nice on the waterfall. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add this cut-apart onto the top, so that it's over my magnet. You can see where I put the magnet right here. And I have all of these glued down to a piece of black cardstock. And what I did with the cardstock is I did 2 hinges. So I'm going to glue these hinges down, and then I am going to glue down, to close off this pocket, I'm going to do a fine strip of glue along here, so that because it's at the edge of my book to the outside, I want to make sure that I have that closed off. So I'm going to put some glue along there, and then this will be glued down. So my mats, or my flaps for this, I cut this at 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, and then I scored at 1/2 inch to create this hinge. So again, that's 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, score at 1/2 inch to make your hinge. And there's 6 of them, so cut 6 of them, and then you can go ahead And what I did is glued down all my cut-aparts. And I also, when doing this, I also used my vintage photo and just did that around the edges of my cut-aparts. So I'm going to add this to my waterfall. And trying to get it lined up the best I can. Sometimes I do really good and other times I just stink, but just do the best that I can. So now that we have all of those on there, I will come back and I'm going to put something in there. I don't know what I'm going to do. I almost think that I may do some pattern paper back here and then do a pocket, a little pocket down here. I'm not really sure. That's kind of still a work in progress, but I wanted to put and work with you on getting as much done as I'm kind of where I'm at. I tend to be a little bit, I think I do a lot in progression, but then I do kind of jump around a little bit. So bear with me, I apologize. So what I did is, in order to hold this down so I didn't have to use a ton of magnets, I have a magnet right here, and then I also have a magnet underneath here. And what I did was I took my punches, sorry, I got too much junk laying around. I took my 2-inch punch, where'd it go? Well, I have a 2-inch, just a round punch, and I punched out this piece from the cut-aparts, or not cut-aparts, but the ephemera. And so right here, I just used my punch, and then I put it on top of this scalloped round that is 2 1/4. And what I ended up doing was I put the magnet on the back of this tab right here, and then I covered that over. And what I will be doing is I will be punching out another one of the colored paper and putting down my finishing paper back here, and also I will put some paper down here. This flap on the end is going to glue right underneath there, and we are going to get that to be as close to the center as we possibly can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this in to the back cover, and then we'll go ahead and do the covers of the book, and then I'm going to go back and do some of the finishing touches that I said that I still needed to do, and after that we'll get back together. So let's go ahead and get this glued in. Let me make sure I've got that centered pretty well. So what I'll do is when I come back, I'll show you the finishing touches down here and any of the tags that I made and some of the other inside pieces. But as you can see, that if I take this waterfall and glue this down, that will finish off this part and will allow me to go ahead and put tags back here, booklet or tags, or, you know, the other thing is that I don't have to put anything, any tags or anything in there if I don't want to, but maybe I choose to take and put pictures down here. If I don't want to add more bulk to it, in a sense of adding tags, maybe that's what I want to do. So that's another option. So let's get this down. And you'll see that I didn't miter this, and the reason for that is just because of wanting it to look clean on the finishing or the ends of it. And let me make sure I'm let me make sure I'm on the right spot. All right. Sorry for twisting and turning, but sometimes for me, that twist and turn, facing it just a little bit differently, is easier for me to see where something is going down and matching up my sides. Okay, here we are. These will dry clear, but I just like to get it cleaned off as much as possible. And I may come back and do some pattern paper in there as well. Just haven't decided. In some ways, in my other book, I didn't do that because I just thought it looked fine the way it was. And I can always go back and add it. It's not like I can't add it later on. So there we go. We've got that in. So that's our back of our cover. So what we're going to do now is to finish off our cover and get the matting on there, and also finishing off our back. So let's go ahead and let's do the back first. I have not done the spine. I am not sure what I'm going to be doing for the spine as far as the paper collection goes, but I have decided for the back that I wanted to use this. So this is the piece with the Kentucky Derby, and I may even put something across here yet. But what I did is I used some of the white artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations to mat this, and I added my pattern paper right away because I'm always scared to use white cardstock when I'm making an album because of being such a messy crafter. But the other thing I just want to note for you is I did not use vintage photo around the edges of this, and that's because this is on white, and so the white core doesn't really show up. And the reason why I put this white on here was because of the white in the album. So I am going to take this and see if I can get this to lay a little bit flatter for me, which it should. Let me make sure. Yeah, there we go. So this makes it just a little bit easier for me when I'm laying down my papers. And so what I always do is I always come in, and even though I've done this before, I always dry fit to make sure that it's exactly where I want it to be. And then I get my glue. And yes, I find that it's easier to put my pattern paper on my matted layer. I like the way of doing that, and then it's just even a little bit thicker when it goes down. And I can make sure that my edges match on my designer paper as well. So let's... And this will help with the lace ribbon in making sure that that is solidly in. I'm always amazed how easy it is when I do a dry fit. It's like it goes down perfectly, and then when I put the glue on it, it always wants to do its own thing. Eee. Or is it just me? All right. It's looking like it's going on crooked. That's why I keep picking and pulling it up. There we go. That's much better. Sorry about that. Sometimes it's painful to watch when someone's trying to line something up. So I'm also going to probably come back in just to check this to make sure that all my picking up and putting down is not going to, you know, or hasn't ruined this. And so my plan is probably to mat this with the white as well, and then to do some pattern paper down here. I had a thought that I was kind of working on a theory of, and I'm not sure that I'm going to do this or not, but I also, here, this is too big, but I had thought about doing kind of this leather kind of cover on the spine and bringing that over to here, but I think I'm just going to do it with the regular paper, but I've been going back and forth about that. So let's get the other part of our cover on. So I'm going to turn this around and we're going to get our cover done, the front part of our cover. And so what I have for that is I have these two amazing horses on this designer paper. And again, we're going to dry fit just to make sure that that looks and works right. I actually cleaned my art glitter glue out before I turned the camera on today. That's amazing. It's one thing I can say I'm not very diligent about is cleaning my art glitter glue tips, which I should, because it just runs so much better, so much more even. Yes, I am double checking to make sure I have this facing the right way, because I felt like I almost put it on upside down. And then with our other cover on the Autumn Orchard, it was pretty plain. This one I'm going to do a little bit more for it. These are great corners, metal corners from Country Craft Creations. So I am going to be putting these on my covers on the corners. And yes, I use my art glitter glue for this. Otherwise, I use Fabri-Tac. Some people like to use hot glue. I find that my art glitter glue works pretty good. What do you call it? The hot glue, to me, seems like it would just ooze out of everywhere. So alright, so let's find one of my big old punches. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to put that down on that so that holds it down. And then we've got this one for right over here. I didn't do it on the other corners or the outside corner there because I didn't want to cover any of the horses. So I do have in mind a secondary project that goes along with this album in particular. It's something I've never made before. It's a 3D box holder for this album, and I will tell you the truth that that's what I'm planning on making. And I think it'll be really cool, but again, like, I've never made it before, so I'm not sure when I'm gonna get started making it. So before I go any further, I need to leave these stay and dry so that they can really catch. But what I'm going to also be adding is I'm taking this cut apart, and I actually took and put it on some chipboard. I drew black around the edges so that they wouldn't be seen easily. I also used my vintage photo around these corners, and I'm going to be putting that on the front along with, I I'm not exactly sure, but the red and cream colored flowers. I didn't want to do complete white on here because I don't know, I probably have some, but I probably would just go ahead and use Vintage Photo on it. These look a little bit Christmassy, and they are a little bit Christmassy, but they're from the same manufacturer. And once it's all together, these match the book corners. So, and I may use this for part of that as well. We'll see how that all goes. But what I'll do is when we get back, I will finish up with the rest of the items that I need to finish for the album. Let this dry for a good 20 minutes or so just to ensure that it's good. And I'll be back to finish everything else off. Thanks so much. Well, good evening, crafters. I'm back for Margaret Knob Designs, and I want to do a walkthrough and a final show on my tutorial for the Majestic Dreams. This is an exclusive collection from Country Craft Creations, so the only place that you can get it is there. And what this is that I did another design team project using the Autumn Orchard papers, and you can see that on my channel. You'll see a walkthrough of it. But this one I did a tutorial on, showing you how to make the old Graphic 45 album, the one that they're not selling any longer. But it's a nice album to make, to use for simple design pages. So let's get into it and take a look at it. The covers are 6 by 8, so 6 by 8. And I double matted these. I used some white artisan cardstock, and then I I matted some sheets on here. This was measured at 5 7/8 by 7 7/8, and then this sheet was 5 3/4 by 7 3/4. So I just went down 1/8 of an inch on each one of those. These are some brass pieces that I got from Country Craft Creations, or album corners. And then I took one of the cut-aparts and I raised that up on some chipboard. And these are just some flowers that I had in my stash. I just wanted to add a little bit more color to the front of this. And then the spine that I did, just very, very simple. The spine is 3 inches across and, of course, 8 inches long. So my matting on here was 2 7/8 by 7 7/8, and this was 2 1/4 by 7 1/4. And the same for the back. I did the same cut on these papers as I did for the front cover. So, and I used some lace ribbon to shut this album, and this is also from Country Craft Creations. So let's go ahead and open this up. And I changed this, the only thing that I changed really on here were the front and back covers. Just kind of changed them around a little bit because of the cut-aparts, and because I also had this clip that with this cabochon on here, and this cabochon has a picture of this young lady with the horse in it, and I thought it made a really nice clip for my waterfall. So when we were together, there was a few things that I didn't finish the last time, so I'm going to show you all of those now. I used a magnet on here, and that's what's holding that down. This just lifts up, and then I used the 3 larger cut-aparts and put them onto here, and I took some of the pattern paper for the gusset there. Same thing on this, and then I used the same cut-apart, but it looks just a little bit different down here. And that's one of the things is that the papers going through this can look a little bit busier, but as we go through, you'll see that using different mats will also knock down on the color. Now, I wouldn't use this color of matte on my pages, this color, because it's too light. I'd probably use black. But if you can even see, if I put a 4 by 6 picture on here, or a 5 by a 5x5 picture that's going to cover up a lot of that pattern on there. So don't be afraid of the pattern. So then we have a flap here, and we have a pocket, and I made a little booklet that goes in there. And then there is room to put a page inside here if you would like to do that for some pictures. Otherwise, you can glue that shut. But I'm going to add that later. And when I do add it, I probably am going to make it, I probably will make it 5 by, maybe 5 by 7. No, these were, sorry, I'm trying to remember what the page size was on these again. I should remember that. I shouldn't have a hard time. Yeah, 5.5 by 7.5. 5.5 by 7.5. So yeah, I probably will do the inserts 5 by 7. That's correct. That's probably what I will end up doing, or thereabouts, maybe 5 1/8 by 7 1/8. That way it gives me plenty of room to pull those in and out, especially when pictures go on it. So then if we go through here, we've got a tag onto here. I may come back in and do some more of the embellishments along here, but for now I'm going to wait until I get some of my pictures in. And then with the paper here, this I may not put anything on because I like the full picture or paper on that. And then that is that's one section. So there are 6 sections like this throughout the book. And then we come to a plain piece, and we've got the greens with the different, oh, I'm blanking on those, those, mint julep, that's what it's called. And I've got one of the graphic 45 tags on there. And I just pulled some more ribbon from my stash. And then I put in here just a small booklet for 3x4s. I just like the way that paper looked in a little booklet there, and most of them were not wide enough. So come into here, and then that's our second grouping. Here's our third group, and again, these can all get filled up with picture frames. So putting a black mat on the back of there would look really nice, or you could even take, sorry, let me get this out. If you wanted to put something, let's say like that on that page, then use 2 of the smaller ones, or I wonder if the 3x3s, or even like that. Or do you do it like this, I don't know. But you know, the nice thing about having plain pages is the fact that you can decide how you want to once you get your pictures. So then I've got a G45 tag in there and brought some of the red in to pick up some of the reddish tones through there. This is my favorite picture. I thought he was a good-looking guy. This is a booklet that goes up, and I thought he matched well with our papers across here. We've got our roses and horses for like the Kentucky Derby, and this one is our paper, the Jockey Club, and what is that called? Is it Thistledown? I think that's what it's called. We've got our horses again there with G45 tag, and I've got another G45 tag that I put in there. And so all of these sections here are all the same, with the exception of the papers that are put in to those sections. So what I tried to do is that if I didn't have any more of this paper or this exactly, or something that matched it, tried to make sure that I got something from this page. And here I did one of those little books again where you can do a 3x4. You could put white in there too to do some journaling. And we've got lots of open pages here for photos and pictures. And then this red tag to pick up some of the red along in here. And we've got another booklet. And this one matches very well with that and kind of brightens this page up a bit. And then we've got a plain one on the back. And then for the back of the book, I ended up doing a pocket here, and so this is closed down on this side. And I did a graphic 45 tag and just put that in sideways. And then took some of my leftover paper and just did another booklet. And I don't have any mats in here or anything, because if I have a picture that'll fit, I'm just going to put it down onto this black. If it's something that's a darker picture, I might put some white around it, or you know, maybe even craft. I don't know. We'll have to see how it looks with the picture. And then I finished off my waterfall. I ended up using the rest of the cut apart tags, and I used a magnet on here. I had a I cut this out with a 2-inch punch, and then this was a 2 1/4 inch punch, and I covered this black cardstock with the pattern paper, and I also did cut out another piece from this type of paper. I cut that out so that it would have a picture on it. And then I went along and I used all of these cut aparts for my flaps, so we can enjoy the pictures, and I can put photos on the back of here. And then I finished the back off with a photo mat back here, and each one of them had some designer paper matting onto there as well. So that is the album. That is the Majestic Dreams. And I could see that you could do a lot of different things on this cover. I could have done maybe like a leather belt to close it off, would have looked really good on here. Done something on the spine with leather. I wanted to, though, as some of you know that have been watching me for a little while, I'm trying to make things a little bit more simple. So in the upcoming months, I'm not sure when I'm going to get it done. I'm going to try to get it done before Christmas, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get it done. I'm actually going to make something that will be a full-size piece, and it'll be a box that will hold this album in it. And but I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag until I get to doing it, and hopefully I can do it. Something I've never done before. So that is it. Thank you very much for joining me for this walkthrough in the final tutorial on this mini album. I thank you so much and hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you.